Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. And today, I'm bringing you my 10 least favorite books of 2023. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will probably be familiar with a lot of these. I've probably ranted about them in multiple videos, but today, one easy stop shop to see all the worst books I read this year. Of course, Vino is with me, so I gotta show him. He's so patient. He's so patient. I just yank him. And then he keeps coming back for more. You'll see his tail flipping by. There it goes. If you have been watching my last couple videos, I talked about the 5 most disappointing books I read this year a couple days ago. Those are different from least favorites. Those books I just expected more from. I still gave them all 3 and 4 stars. I just wanted them to be more. With these, they were just bad. Like, not only were my expectations not met, either actively disliked the message and the story, or I actively disliked how it made me feel. Standard YouTube disclaimer: if you loved any of these books, if you had a great time with any of these, I am so happy for you. That's wonderful. I'm glad you got to enjoy them. I did not, and I'm going to tell you about it. So I have 2 honorable mentions on this list, and that is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig and The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. I believe I gave this 2 or 3 stars, and I gave this 2 or 3 stars. How to Stop Time is about a man who has this genetic disorder where he ages really, really, really slowly. So he was born in Elizabethan times, but lives until modern day. And he meets this French woman who he falls in love with, and she like brings back his will to live or whatever. It felt preachy. It felt like a white man needing to be taught that other people's feelings matter. There is this like shadowy albatross society for all these people who live a long time, and you get the feeling that they are the ones stunting his growth and ability. And I guess it could be seen as like a metaphor for the patriarchy or expectations for men in society. But like, this just wasn't written for me. This is for men. And it felt like it. And I was looking for a time travel story, and this wasn't it. This is not time travel. And I didn't really love the romance, and it was okay. So I'm actually unhauling this, and you'll actually see a couple of these I already featured in my unhaul video. I just actually haven't gotten rid of the books yet. They're all in a pile in front of me. So this is going. And The Death of Jane Lawrence is historical fiction, steampunk-y, alternate universe. And our main character, Jane Lawrence, decides that she needs to get married because that's the only way a woman can have autonomy in this society, because it is like historical England, but also kind of alternate, which was one of the things that threw me off. I could not pinpoint like what time this was set in, what time period, because there is no time period. They just, and this is going to be a hot take, but as a writer, it felt like the author didn't want to do the research and work to pin this to a specific time period and make it, true historical fiction. So they just took the elements they wanted from historical fiction and put it in here with some like magical elements. I didn't like that. I either want it to be pinned to a specific time, or your world building needs to be better, because I could not, there's like this looming war that they just got out of, or that they're still recovering from, that like orphaned our main character. But it's unclear if this is like a World War I, World War II kind of allegory, or if it's earlier than that, because this society seems a bit Victorian, and Victorian is before World War I. So I couldn't get on board with it. I know too much about those historical time periods to just hand wave and be like, yeah, it's, ambiguous time period, and England, this like fake England, is kind of enemies with this fake Russia. And like the plot points felt contrived, and I couldn't get on board with the romance. And then there was this weird time travel element that kind of left you at the end like, what? Just no. I did not. What kept me at a distance the most is the world building, but I couldn't get on board with any of the other elements either. So it was like a double whammy. And those are just the honorable mentions, boyo. Woo! So in spot number 10, least favorite of the year, is Prince Lestat by Anne Rice. Now, this probably could be higher on the list, but I have fond feelings of these characters. We've got a history. We've got like a 10-year history. Longer than that. Oh my God. I can't think about that. But we've got like a 15-year history here. And so while this particular book was terrible and actively icked me out, I did like getting to see where all the characters are. So this is the 10th in the Vampire Chronicles series. It might be the 11th. I don't know. This follows Lestat and Louis and Armand and a bunch of other characters from the various Vampire Chronicles series. The plot of this is like this overpowering voice is forcing older vampires to kill new young vampires. Plague happening across the vampire world of all of these new younger vampires dying by the hand of older vampires. And Lestat is trying to figure this out, and like he can hear the voice, but he can resist it, and he's not going to kill the young vampires. There was this whole subplot where Lestat met these vampire scientists, and they have found a drug to give male vampires their like virility back, and he sleeps with a human woman and gets her pregnant, like spoilers, gets her pregnant. And it was just so icky to me, because not only do I have issues with like pregnancy trope and like anytime any characters in any book, in my writing, on TV, anytime any characters have sex, I'm like, what if they get pregnant? Are they going to get pregnant? Did they use a condom? It's just like the first thought in my head, sex equals pregnancy. And in this, no, I guess I don't understand why other people don't think that way, but maybe that's just a me issue. But in this woman and Lestat have sex, and it's not anywhere in his realm of possibility that like she could get pregnant, which is fair. He's been a vampire for like, I don't know, 400 years at this point. It turns out that the other vampires and this woman all wanted her to get pregnant, and it just felt icky. It felt like a little coercive and a little like rapey, because he didn't consent to having a kid. He was not told about the child until this man is like a grown-ass adult. And it was weird. It was weird, and I did not like it, and I didn't like the ending. I don't like Louis and Armand being together as like endgame. I just have a lot of personal beef with this book, and I think I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't good, and it made me very unhappy, actually. Number 9 on my list is Hope in the Dark by Rebecca Solnit. This is on my list because it is too dated. I don't think it should have been like re-released. I think it is a product of its time. And this is a nonfiction book about activism, and particularly climate activism. Let me read you part of the back, okay? Drawing on her decades of activism and a wide reading of environmental, cultural, and political history, Solnit argues that radicals have a long, frequently overlooked record of transformative victories, that the positive consequences of our acts are not always immediately measurable, and that the embrace of uncertainty is both more useful and more accurate an assessment than either passive optimism or pessimism and despair. Okay, so her argument is that activists actually do accomplish things, but in the moment when you are being the activist, you will probably not see that positive impact or that impact on the world. And there is one story about an activist who like protest and whatever, and then, you know, we get this young man 20 years later who's like, yeah, I was really inspired by seeing these women protesting, blah, blah, blah. I guess she does argue that being uncertain and being unsure, you just need to get comfortable in the unknowing, and you need to just, you know, put your energy into what you know is right, and the rest will come. But this was a lot about climate activism and the importance of climate activism, and I just found it difficult to, I don't want to say care about these struggles, but when you are fighting, like, you can care about multiple issues, and I do care about the climate. However, 30, 40, 50 years in the future idea of like, we need to work now to save the future is valid, and I get it. But in our current climate, where women have just been stripped of their right to choice, and where we have so much pushback against transgender people being able to get health care, I was going to say like participate in sports and have safe bathrooms, but it's even just for trans people to exist is a battle, that it felt very disconnected for this to argue about like, you just have to do what's right and work toward these things, and here's how climate activism has impacted people. I just kept being like, okay, but what about this? What about our current things? What about the despair of having rights taken away that you had previously? What about the despair of people not seeing you as a human, you know? And so I couldn't get on board with this. I think I gave it 3 stars, and it just feels dated. It was written in like 2004, which is 20 years ago as of, 3 days from now. Number 8 on this list is Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder by Joanna Fluke. I think it's Joanna Fluke. This is a cozy mystery. It is number 8 on this list because of the fat phobia. And it was also very dated. This is a cozy mystery about a woman who someone gets murdered behind her cookie bakery. She is asked by the police to kind of help quietly investigate because she knows like everyone in the town. And she's this like fiery, redheaded, don't need no man kind of girl. And the mystery was okay. It doesn't really stick out in my mind. I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook was okay, but I did not like the main character. And in a cozy mystery series, you have to like the main character. They are the one that you are following for, 20 books, because cozy mystery series can be so long. And I know that this one in particular is a really long-standing cozy mystery series. But the main character, we start out with her judging her sister for how she's parenting this little girl. And she judges this family for their house being kind of like ugly and poor, and she judges this woman for being fat, and she's just so judgmental in so many like typical like I'm better than other women ways that I just by the end I was like, I'm glad this is over. I'm not reading the rest of these. I don't need to read about this like toxic female character being like, I'm so much cooler than other women and I'm smarter and better than other women. Like, God, I own a bakery and I'm not as fat as her. Like, can you not? So that's why it is number 8 on this list. I think I gave it 3 stars, which is kind of generous. Number 7 on this list is Still Watch by Mary Higgins Clark. I read this for the Books and Lala Besties Book Club. We did like a 1985 thing where I all read different books. And I feel a little bad because this book could be lower on this list actually, because I think the plot is like okay, the tension is like okay, but thinking about it, when I was making this list, this just wasn't very good. I've read a lot of other Mary Higgins Clark, but I was like 13, 14, and my probably tolerance for nonsense and shenanigans was higher. In this, we follow a woman who is a like TV interviewer person, and she is moving back to Washington, D.C. Her parents like killed each other. That's not a spoiler. We know that in the first bit. And she's moving back to kind of figure out what actually happened because she doesn't know. She was like 2 and her leg was broken and she has like chronic pain from this injury, and she wants to know, like, did her father kill her mother? Did her mother kill her father? Like, what happened there? But no one knows that she's that girl because it was this huge scandal because the man was a senator or whatever. And then she is also doing this big TV spotlight, they didn't have internet. This came out in 1985. She's doing this big TV spotlight episode about this female senator who is the first woman nominated to run for vice president. So she's running for vice president as a woman, and there was a lot of like woman power, women can do anything, but there was also a weird amount of sexism. Like, the main romance for our character is with a man like 10 years, 15 years older than her, and he had a wife when they first met, but he didn't want to cheat on her. She was like ill and sick and dying. And that was kind of icky. And then the main senator character is yikes. And one of the big plot twists is that like the senator doesn't want our main character to delve into her past because she was actually a poor, oh my god, she was poor. Her mom was a housekeeper. Scandal. Like, are you kidding me? Do you really think the masses that vote for you are going to be so scandalized that you didn't come from a like rich family upbringing? I don't know about that. The fat phobia in here was off the charts. That's another thing. Not only did not the main character, not only did the senator character not want people to know she was a poor, they didn't want people to know her mother was fat. The biggest sin. Oh my god. I won a beauty queen award, but my mother was a fucking fatso, and I can't have pictures of me and her together out in the public eye. Like, it was truly disgusting, and it almost went unchecked. The main character did call her out and be like, I don't think your constituents are going to hate you for having a large mother. But the main character, when she sees pictures of this woman, is like, oh my god, she was so fat, and her ankles this, and her legs this, and I can't believe, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, the fat phobia in the senator was called out a little bit, but the fat phobia overall in the book was still there. And it was just, I was reading it like, are you kidding me? Like, that's your big secret? Your mother was fat? What kind of 1980s bullshit is this? So, absolutely hated that. And there was a weird religious thing happening, and like mercy kills, and you find out who the person threatening the main character is in like the first half. Like, at the halfway point, you get their point of view and why they're doing this. And there were some scenes that like actually led to high tension because you see his point of view and you know where he is, but she doesn't know where he is. And like there was tension in that, but also it was an interesting choice as a writer to build the suspense. Who's sending these notes? Who's sending these death threats? And then to give that point of view and just straight up tell you, oh, this person is the one sending the death threats halfway through the book. It was just interesting. I think it still mostly worked, but the fat phobia really just makes this number 7 on my list. And I think I gave it 2, maybe 3 stars. And all of these so far were in my unhaul video. I am unhauling these. Number 6 on this list is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This is a more recent read, and the audiobook may have had something to do with it, but this is about 2 girls. One is a famous writer. She's won a Pulitzer and she's new at this school. And the other girl is coming back after a year in a mental hospital because her ex-girlfriend killed herself, and maybe our main character had something to do with it. Maybe she murdered her. Maybe she drove her to it. It's unclear at the beginning. And these 2 girls meet up and become friends and kind of have this tangled romance. And first of all, does that sound like they're high schoolers? Because they're high schoolers, and that was a big issue for me. Also, I could not get on board with this romance. I couldn't get on board with the, like, uncertainty. I guess Felicity, our main character, the one who was in a mental hospital, would be considered a unreliable narrator, and I don't love that. I don't love that trope. I don't love that writing style. I don't love that, especially when it's so blatant, where she tells us what happened or her memories of what happened, and then we find out later that that's just not true. I don't think it was done well enough, because I'm thinking of The Last House on Needless Street, and that has an unreliable narrator, technically like 2 of them, but it was done with such skill and care that I was okay with it, and it felt earned, right? This does not feel earned. This feels like a cheap trick. And they're in high school. Like, my biggest issue with this book was, why was this set in a boarding school, high school? Make them in college, for the love of God. Put them in college. And also, there's like, this school is called Dalloway School, and it was founded by a woman, blah, blah, blah. There were these like 5 women who were killed in 5 different ways And part of what the two girls are investigating is like how those women died, why they died. Is there truth to them being witches? Were they persecuted by the, town? What happened? That storyline is never fully resolved or resolved well. Our main character thinks she's being haunted by this spirit, and that wasn't resolved well. Like, none of the magical elements were finished or resolved well. It was all left kind of ambiguous, and like, you as the reader have to decide, and that plays into the unreliable narrator bullshit. And why? For what? Like, my sticky notes when I finished this were literally, why? For what? What's the point? Why did you do this? And I love an unlikable character. I love a dark, twisted romance. I love that kind of stuff. But this didn't do any of it well. And that feels so mean. But I just was so frustrated with this book because it had so many things that I could have liked. Oh, speaking of dark love stories, number 5 on this list is A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. And me and Samantha Downing have beef. I have not liked either of the 2 books I read by her. And everyone talks about, oh my God, My Lovely Wife is so good. And so I read this for a live show, and everyone was like, oh, if you didn't like this, give Samantha Downing another shot, read My Lovely Wife. And I'm sitting there like, I read My Lovely Wife, and I didn't like that either. But let me talk about A Twisted Love Story. This is a story about Wes and Ivy, and they have this on-again, off-again, tumultuous relationship. When it's good, it's amazing. And when it's bad, it's terrible and abusive and manipulative. So at the beginning of the book, Ivy accuses Wes of stalking her, goes to the police, talks about these chocolates that she received. There was a bite taken out of each one, and it kind of brings Wes and Ivy back into each other's spheres, because he's like, why are you doing this? I didn't leave those chocolates. And so we get the detective who is trying to pin everything on Wes. She's like, he's definitely abusive. I've seen this all the time. And Ivy is manipulative as hell. And it was bananas. First of all, it wasn't good. It wasn't well written. None of the characters were likable. There's a random sexual assault scene. It's not random, but there's like a sexual assault scene at the beginning that like turns a bunch of other stuff on its head. And we know that Wes and Ivy did something terrible back in the day when they were having a fight. It was just so stupid. It was stupid and juvenile. These 2 people were like, they'd be in love, and then she would get insanely jealous, and she like crushed up candy on his couch and poured squirt all over it. First of all, grapefruit soda isn't weird. Liking grapefruit soda isn't weird. It's not a quirky girl thing. That just stood out to me, that he was so like, oh my God, she likes squirt. She's not like other girls. Excuse you? Their romance was trash. And she like flirts with this guy at a bar, and then he goes all insane and is like, oh, I'm engaged, and my girlfriend, like, why'd you post that on social media? My girlfriend doesn't believe I'm not cheating on her. And it's like, that sounds like a you problem, okay? That sounds like an issue with your relationship if your girlfriend doesn't believe you when you say, I don't know this woman. And when the woman also confirms, yeah, I just took one picture with him to make my boyfriend jealous. Like, what the frick? Every character in this book is a freaking psycho. The detective was so frustratingly focused on making Wes out to be the bad guy and abusive. And Ivy is actually like low-key worse. And it was just, there was no one to root for. It was frustrating as hell. I listened to this audiobook on like 2.5 times speed just so I could get it over with. There was no redeeming qualities, no characters that I liked. The big bad thing that happened was stupid. No, I gave it 2 stars. Absolutely hated it. And I have one other book by Samantha Downing on my shelves, and I will read that, and I will probably not like it, and then I'm not buying any more of her books. I'm done. I'm out skis. Oh, this video is getting heated. I'm like, I'm angry that these books were not good. I pick them up because I think they're going to be good, because they have elements that I like, and then they do that crap? No. And it's only going to get worse, because the higher on this list we go, the stronger feelings I have. Number 4, is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. You've probably seen things on the internet about how freaking terrible this book is. I've lost my words, actually. This is a sequel to Fourth Wing. A lot of the things that I enjoyed about Fourth Wing were not present in this. Our main character is suddenly, she's got her powers, so she's like a little more secure. She still needs to train. She's dealing with the trauma of the end of the last book, but she's pushing all her friends away. And when we have a character that does that, when they're like, it's keeping them safe, I need to keep them safe by not telling them these things. It's like they're in equal danger, whether you tell them or not, because you're friends with them. If someone hates you or has a grudge against you and they know you care about this person, it doesn't matter if they know the thing that could put them in danger or they don't, because your enemies know you care. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. Tell them the truth. The romance in this was actually the most egregious, horrible thing, because the action at the end got pretty good, but there's this character who has it out for our main character, Violet, this person in power, and that whole plot, I was just like, what's the point? Where did this man come from? And maybe I just wasn't paying attention in the audiobook, but also this is freaking long. It is so long for no reason. You could have cut 200 pages out of this and it would have been better. This is about a war college in a fantasy world where there are dragon riders, and the story is that they're in a war, some ambiguous war with like griffins. In the first book, we find out that maybe not everything is what it seems, and the war has different vibes, and you've got different quadrants, and there's the scribe quarter, and then there's the dragon riders, and like you don't even know, I guess there's the healers, and there must be one other, but maybe it's only 3. If you could overlook the world building in the first one, in the second one it's a lot harder to overlook because the plot needs to start doing things, and when you don't have a firm grasp on what the stakes are or what the world is happening, how can you know what the plot is doing? They have a big fight at the end where he's like, you need to ask me things. You can't get mad at me for not telling you things when you don't ask. And it's like, when you trust someone, when you are in a relationship with someone, don't you just tell them the things that they need to know? Like, if you know that they don't know something, you just tell them. How does she know what to ask? She doesn't know all these big secrets that he's keeping. Well, why would she ask about that? She has no clue. It was the stupidest, most inane, most middle school bullshit that I've ever read. And like the tension in the first book, because they kind of started out enemies, felt pretty good. I kind of liked that tension of like, ooh, what are his feelings? Does he hate her or does he like her? Like, what is going on there? How do they feel? In this one, the tension was supposed to be like, oh, they're kept apart, but they have these like weekends together because their dragons are mates. He won't sleep with her until she admits something and says these 3 words. And it's like, why are you holding sex hostage for feelings? Like, it wasn't healthy. It's not a healthy relationship dynamic. And it was just bad, okay? I'm gonna stop ranting. It was just bad, and I didn't enjoy it, and I will probably read the 3rd book, but I gave this, I think, 3 stars. It was so mid, so unsatisfying. This is going to be kind of a long video. I didn't think I had this much to say, but I do. Now, these last 3, the worst 3 books I read this year, I could have put them in any order, is what I'm going to say. Like, I put them in this order because of the feelings I have about the story and the writing and the way it made me feel, but okay, I'm just gonna get into it. So number 3 is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brianne Randall. I honestly thought about putting this as number 1, my least favorite book of the year, because I wanted to DNF it 150 pages in. I actively was like, I should not finish this. I should just put this down and read something else. But I was on a car ride. I had like 4 hours left in the audiobook. I was listening at 2 times speed. And I was like, I could finish this in like 2 hours and find out how it ends. And I'm such a completionist. I really should have just DNF'd this. This is about our main character, Sadie. She lives with her grandmother. And in this world, not everyone, but in this world, some people have magic. But if you have magic, you also have a curse. And when you're like 12 or something, you figure out what your curse is, and you can either give up your magic and your curse, or you keep your magic and you keep your curse. Our main character loves her magic more than anything. She thinks it's so fantastic. She's so in tune with the world and nature, and she just really loves it. Her mother left them. She's living with her grandmother. Her brother left like a year or two ago for unknown reasons. And her curse is that she's going to suffer 4 heartbreaks, and after the 4th heartbreak, she's going to lose her magic. So she knows that I guess there's a time limit on her magic, but this also means she's trying to protect herself from heartbreak, that she's already suffered 2 heartbreaks and she doesn't want a 3rd. And then she finds out that her grandmother has cancer and is dying, and she knows that's going to be her 3rd heartbreak. The plot of this feels kind of contrived because her brother left town and then he comes back randomly. Maybe he knows about the grandmother, maybe he's drawn back by the magic, I don't know. This girl's first boyfriend comes back to town. He's like flirting with her, but he broke her heart. He was one of her heartbreaks. So she doesn't want to get back involved with him. And I'm just going to put spoilers on the screen to talk about this. I feel like I haven't really spoiled any of the other books, but I'm absolutely going to spoil this. Her grandmother is dying because these twins were conceived through magic and sexual assault, and only one of them was supposed to survive, but the grandmother did like a spell to make sure they both lived, but now the spell has rebounded on her and she's growing like a tumor. So she's basically saying that she's dying because of them, because she tried to keep them alive for so long, and their mom was forced to leave because of the spell. So she's actually actively, like, that was her curse, was not being able to grow up and see her children grow up. And it felt like maybe all of the terrible things in this world came from magic. Also, these witches go to church. Also, they own a bakery. And the one redeeming factor of this book is the description of the bakery and the way different teas affect emotions and all of these magical things, like practical magic, were decent. That was the one good thing. There's also this like ghost floating around. There's this ambiguous threat. Someone setting fire to her garden. Like, it was just a mess. There was so much going on. The reason I should have DNF'd it is this man who came back, who was her first heartbreak, is like actively pursuing her. And then he's like, oh, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something. He's engaged. He's engaged, and his girl is having a baby. His baby, and he wants to be there for her. So why come back to this town? Why come back and bother her if you have this whole other life? He's like, well, I just know that I love you, and like, if I could be with you, I would, but I can't. And it's such bullshit. And then our main character goes to meet the girl and like gives her this truth tea, and the girl confesses that she lied about the baby because she didn't want him to leave, because you absolutely have to demonize the woman in order for the man to not look that bad, because he's doing the honorable thing and gonna marry her because she's having his baby. Because in 2023, that's absolutely still the honorable freaking thing, right? I can't even with this book. So then our main character knows that like he's being lied to, but then she has to keep the secret because she got that truth through unsavory means, and like her grandmother dies, and the grief is harsh. Like, this book is sad. This book is so sad. Then he does find out, and like they do get to be together, but then her brother is also like tortured by voices in his head because his magic is like reading minds or something, and they have to figure out a way to ground the magic that their grandmother did within 30 days of her death. Otherwise, one of them is gonna die. And our main character at one point thinks that the only way to save her brother is to kill herself. Okay, it's so, this book is so twisted and sad. And it is about women sacrificing their happiness and their ambition and their joy in order to keep a man happy, right? Because our main character in the end sacrifices her magic in order to keep her brother alive, because the idea is like it needs a death, and the death of her magic is the death of her old self, and she will proceed as a new person, magicless, and opening herself to, you know, the heartbreak of loving this trash man who came back. And it was just what in the most just what? The themes of this were not good. The ideas behind it were not good. The plot was not good and sad. This book was just sad, messed up things that I don't want to root for. And the main character is like upset that her brother left and didn't talk to them for 2 years. She's upset that her ex-boyfriend came back after breaking her heart and acted like they can just be friends again. And everyone's like, oh, you should just get over it. You should be easier on them, blah, blah, blah. It's like our main character having valid feelings of anger and hurt, and everyone gaslighting her into saying she's being unreasonable. No, thank you. No, thank you. I gave this 2 stars. I should have given it 1. Number 2 on this list, If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich. Where do I start with this? So this is about a boy band who is going on an international tour. Our 4 main characters, we've got one whose parents are, basically stage moms. They tell them everything that's done wrong with their stuff. They send articles that are being published about like why this character didn't make that note, how to clear up the zits on your face. We've got another character who like wants to make his kind of dark emo music or whatever, and the label isn't letting him make his music. We've got one character who is the son of their like manager or management or executive producer, someone high up at the record label. This kid is portrayed as like the sexy one, and they have him kind of exploit his body and good looks on stage and in music videos, and he's really uncomfortable with that because he's pretty religious. And then we have another character who wants to be the sexy one and the dangerous, risque one, and they've put like the good boy image on him because his name is Angel. And he is rebelling against that by getting into drugs and drinking. Kind of have this theme of their image versus who they really are and how all 4 of these boys struggle against that. On the one hand, it was kind of a demonization about the record label and the music executives and how they force these boys into these roles in order to make money and sell records and whatever. But also, I feel like this book demonized the fans, and it at some points made me feel bad about being a fan of famous people. And that's just fucked up. If people are truly that unhappy, their fans care about, I don't know how to explain this. Like, this has been compared a lot to One Direction. And I'm so scattered because there's so many things wrong with this book and also the response to this book. Because a lot of the 1-star reviews on Goodreads, which I did not get, I gave this 2 stars. It's not good. I don't like it. But all the 1-star reviews were like, it's One Direction fan fiction, One Direction fan fiction, One Direction fan fiction. Okay, and you didn't like it? Or did you even read it? Like, why is that why you gave it 1 star? Because that's not a valid reason. And yes, I am the arbiter of why people can like things or how you can like it. And I'm telling you right now that calling this fan fiction is not a valid reason to give it 1 star. Because there are a lot of valid reasons to give this 1 star, but the fact that you think it's fan fiction isn't one of them. I'm getting heated. So this book made me feel bad about being a fan because, if you think of One Direction, because that's what everyone's comparing it to, when they broke up, or went on hiatus, when they went on hiatus, it's upsetting to the fans, but like you still want the best for your faves. You want them to be happy and fulfilled. The way that these boys kind of didn't understand fandom was, maybe that is how people feel. I don't know. These 2 people don't know that either. Just, it felt gross. It felt gross. I kind of get, like, seeing all the Taylor Swift news, I kind of understand being afraid of your fans because there are crazies out there, and we've seen that. We've seen people gather wherever Taylor Swift goes. We've seen stories about people breaking into her various houses. Like, I get it, but this is fiction. This is fiction, and you are writing a fictional story about a boy band, and you need people who are fans of this kind of thing to be on your side and want to read this and like it. And as a fan of those things, boy bands and Taylor Swift and the, famous people, This didn't make me feel good about liking those things. Also, we have two boy band members falling in love. There was a lot of miscommunication. It was stupid. They didn't talk about any of their issues. They were friends for so long, and then they do one kiss, and one guy who thought he was straight was like, I need to think about it. And the other guy just flips out and is like, oh my God, he hates me. We ruined everything, but he's the one who kissed me and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, can you just talk to him? If you both want this friendship to be okay, then just talk to each other. Just freaking talk to each other. And that is my least favorite kind of romance, where any of the issues could be solved if you just freaking talk to each other. And then like you have the media scrutiny and people being like, oh, so-and-so is going to break up the band, and the parent scrutiny. And no one was looking out for these boys. No one was on their side. It was just these four, and the management wasn't on their side. Their parents weren't on their side. Their agent wasn't on their side. No one is helping them. And that feels really gross. They're like 17 and 18 and no one's looking out for them. Like, it just wasn't enjoyable to read about in any way. The romance was sad. The romance had miscommunication. The romance wasn't good. And then you're watching these characters just self-destruct because no one is looking out for them. One of the characters literally gets hit by a car in front of all his fans and the rest of the band. And I was like, what the actual fuck is happening? Like, because he was tripping out of his mind and ran into the street, and just, it was just absolutely insane. And then you have this like cathartic moment. There was one cathartic moment. That's why it gets the second star, where the two gay the gay and the bisexual character get to come out and show their relationship, and the fans support them. And there is a lovely moment at the end where the fans support them and they realize like, oh, the fans are here for us, not just the image of us, but actual us. And that was really nice. And then immediately their record label comes in and says, hey, we're going to sue you because you said we wouldn't let you come out, and that's defamation. And you're just like, can these kids not get a break? What is happening? And then they like, you know, the fans help them get their new single to #1 or whatever. And another record label they're having a talk, and maybe they'll get picked up by this other label and bought out of their other contract. But it's just, it ends so ambiguously that you can't even argue this has a happy ending, that they go through all this shit and then get, you know, a happy ending. It's just like more shit. This is just a shit show, shit storm, shit book. And I didn't like any part of it, except that one little cathartic section at the end. That was it. That was the only light, and then it was immediately snuffed out again. I don't know who this is written for, because it actively alienates fans. Can someone who gave this 5 stars explain it to me? For the love of God, because there are so many reviews that are like, such a cute swoony boy band romance, such a cute romance, oh my God, such a swoony boy band romance. There was nothing swoony about this. It was just sad. It was all sad. I would go so far as to say that this could be considered a dark romance rather than like some cute teen YA romance. My #1 book, I do feel a little bad about it because like my top 2 books are both queer, and that feels gross. But queer books can be bad too. So my #1 worst book of the year. You would think it was the other two. No, it is Yesterday's History by Kosoko Jackson. I read this for time travel research. And you know what? I read this for boy band research. So this time travel boy band book is really making me read all of the garbage. I think I gave this 2 stars. This is about a boy who gets a liver transplant, and it gives him the ability to time travel. I'm so serious right now. Which is fine, okay? If that's how you want to do it. This time travel family, their son dies, gives up his liver. It allows the kid to time travel. It's, you know, there are sense memories in your organs. If you've read studies about people who have trouble sleeping because their new organ like is not adjusted to their schedule. People who their personalities change slightly. It is someone else's DNA being introduced to your body and your system. So like, okay, cool, he can time travel now. Got it. I can suspend my disbelief for that. What I can't suspend my disbelief for is the fact that this kid who got a liver transplant immediately starts drinking alcohol. What? You are taking meds to make sure your body doesn't reject this liver right away, and you accidentally travel back in time and someone makes you a drink and you're like, yeah, let me just drink that. Like, Are you trying to show that he's a stupid 17-year-old? But someone who's actively been battling liver failure for most of their life, I feel like they'd have more care about their body. Are you stupid? Like, that just made the character stupid immediately in my mind. Like, okay, you get a new liver and you're gonna mess it up with alcohol immediately. But everyone around him is like, oh, he's so smart. He can go to Harvard. He's so smart. He gets good grades. He's so smart. He's not smart. Don't tell me he's smart because you're showing me he's an idiot. So our main character travels back in time to his house on accident, to 1969, meets this boy. They kind of fall in love over like 3 different meetings. In the present day, this time travel family finds our main character, explains to him time travel and like their abilities. The son, the second son, because they had one son who died, and then his brother, they tell the brother to teach our main character how to handle the time travel, how to control it, all that stuff. And they start to fall in love. And it's kind of messed up because he's still grieving his brother, and now he's like mad at this kid because he lived and his brother died, but like then they fall in love. But so it's like a love triangle, but add in time travel, and it was just inane. It was inane and stupid. And this rich family like chose him to get the liver because he's so smart and like he could do the time travel and like help in some way, but it's never fully explained why they time travel or what they do. Like they study it, I guess. They study history and write about it because they can't change the past events. But also we are given like no details about like what they're studying, why, what they're doing with that study, like why can you time travel? Why do you want to time travel? Why is this important? No. And the training montages are just like sending him back and making him come back, sending him back and making him come back. And but like, why? What is he doing in the past? So we don't really get any of the actual time travel of our main character exploring different time periods. So I feel like the promise of the premise of like, this boy learns how to time travel was not there. We only get scenes of him going back to see this one boy in 1969 and then like 1971, and then like a couple of years we see this guy kind of struggle with alcoholism and struggle with being queer back in the day, and it didn't make any sense. Their relationship didn't make sense. The relationship in the current time period didn't really make sense. The time travel didn't really, it had a bit of these tabs are like some of the time travel lore building and like understanding and the time travel rules, basically, because that's what I was reading it for. Also, the banter is inane and asinine. Basically, I'm going to read a sentence explaining the time travel because I wrote a sticky note that said the how and why of the story connected/bonded, tethered, which implies fate. So it says, but sometimes for whatever reason, people get bound to each other or bound to other people through time and space. No one knows why it happens. Typically, there's some genetic or spiritual or emotional connection. So implying that there's some sort of spiritual, emotional connection between our main character and this guy in the past that he falls in love with. But like, he doesn't ever, like, basically at the end, his liver starts to be rejected and he can't time travel because it's ripping him apart. So he has to choose between going back in time and staying with Michael or staying in his current time with Blake. Why? It was just stupid. It was just stupid and not well thought through. And we were told so many things about the characters, but we were not shown any of it. Like, the example I have is the stupid smart thing. Like, everyone thinks this kid's so smart, and then he immediately is drinking alcohol on a borrowed liver. Like, make it make sense. I feel like this is my worst book of the year just because I don't understand why it exists. Like, what was the point of the story? What was the point of having time travel? You could have a regular love triangle and nothing would be different about this story. The only thing that's different is that he has to choose who he's with because he literally won't be able to go back in time. And like, I guess there is a little bit about not changing the past because he kind of goes back in time and tries to save the brother who gave him the liver, but then he wouldn't have the liver, and it gets kind of messy and time travel-y in that way. But I guess for me, when I'm reading a book that has time travel, I want there to be some overarching, larger reason why time travel is a thing. I want the world building around the time travel to be better, right? Who oversees the time travel? Is it overseen? Is it just this one family? What do they do with it? Why are they doing it? What's the point? And I didn't really get any of that. I don't know. Talking about it, I kind of want to switch it. And I thought about this earlier because this is by like a Black author. It's a queer story. Like I hate having to talk shit. I don't have to talk shit. I just don't like talking bad about a minority book. But like, if it's not good, it's not good. And I'm going to treat them all the same. But I think these made me angrier. But these are also more recent than this. I think I read this in like March or April. I read this in like May. And I read this in October. So like, this is why I said these three are almost interchangeable. You could, you know, this is 3, this is 2, this is 1. These 3 are my worst 3 books of the year, and you can put them in any order and I'd be okay with that. Thank you for sticking with me if you made it this far into the video. Let me know what some of your worst books of the year were. Let me know I'm not alone in disliking some of these books if you read them. I don't recommend. If these sound good to you, do some more research and make sure, because I'm not recommending any of these. But thank you for watching. And if you like this video, you could click that like button. You could subscribe, but really, you can do whatever you want. And I will see you tomorrow to talk happy stuff about my favorite books of the year.